Welcome to this episode of the Shared Security Podcast. And this week, we are going to talk about the cybersecurity job market and
Woohoo!
all of that fun stuff with very special guest, Kathleen Smith, CMO of clearedjobs.net. Welcome back to the show,
I am
Kathleen.
so excited to be here.
Yeah.
This is my second or my third?
This is like, I think your third time on the
Wow.
show.
Very excited. Very excited.
Yes. Yeah, really glad to have you back on. And I always feel like, we have you on at the beginning of the year because there's just so much activity going on in the job market. People are changing jobs, they're thinking about changing jobs, all of that stuff, where people are hiring. Like myself, I'm actually hiring through my day job. And I've had, hopefully we'll get to talk about that in a little bit about some of the experience of being a hiring manager in this day and age.
Yep.
But what have you been up to recently?
So what I've been up to recently, people normally see me posting that I'm at this B-Sides or that B-Sides. And I had spent, I think it was almost 12 years doing career tracks, career villages, DEF CON, my baby, which is B-Sides Las Vegas Higher Ground, many of the different B-Sides. Many of the other conferences, I actually worked with a large certifying organization on their career track. And this is all in addition to my day-to-day job of running marketing for clearedjobs.net. We started this podcast, and it was just amazing being able to talk to all of our customers who are cleared facilities employers, people who can hold security clearances, and just talk about what they see from the job market and what they see are the challenges. And I then unfortunately had a very rough year where I lost 4 family members and a dear friend of the security community, Mike Murray, all within 6 months. And that threw me into a loop. And then a year later, I ended up having a significant health challenge. And so it was basically the universe hitting me over the head with a baseball bat and saying, life is short. Life, it needs to be lived to its fullest. And even though being out in the community and talking to people and helping people really is my passion, it was just exhausting and draining. And I watch many of my colleagues doing the same thing. And you're out there in the community. I know all of us know this, we got to go to this con, we got to go to that con, we got to do this, we got to do that. Sorry, guys, you don't need to do all of it. And I had to sort of basically said no to it all and really focus on my health, focus on my family. And we had already started this podcast, Security Cleared Jobs, Who's Hiring and How. And during the pandemic, one of our customers, a phenomenal hiring manager, actually more recruiter extraordinaire, Rachel Bozeman, was on so many fun recruiter panels with me. And then she left the cleared community and went to the commercial. And I just said, we have an opportunity. So she and I have been having an absolute blast with the podcast. She is just so talented. And it's really developed into one of my most cherished relationships. We're going hiking in the Canadian Rockies later this year. We've gone to a Taylor Swift concert together. So you will go through dark periods in your career and in your life, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And what I really love about the podcast is just gathering all of this data that I inherently knew about career search and recruiting, but hearing the examples and hearing the passion by recruiters, because I know in our industry, we love to bash the recruiters and we love to bash the companies. It's never the job seeker's fault. And there's only so many times I can say these things, but hearing my customers, hearing the cleared facilities employers say it was just so great. And so we not only did that podcast, I then, at the end of each one of the episodes, I would ask the recruiters, what was their most difficult hiring challenge or recruiting challenge? And what skills or tools did they use to overcome it? And I thought, this is just sort of a way to share recruiting leadership, to share tools and ideas and strategies and vision. And it just sort of grew into its own standalone podcast and its own standalone newsletter. And that has been amazing because it's always to me been about sharing knowledge and
Mhm.
sharing best practices. And not once did we get a silver bullet tool. We got, well, this is a huge challenge, and these are the thinking processes that I go through. This is what I do with my team. Sometimes there was a tool, but it was only one part of the answer. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's about relationship building, and it's been great to build relationships with all these great recruiters. So,
That's
that's
awesome.
it. It's been a
That
roller coaster few years.
Wow. Yeah, definitely a roller coaster for sure. But you came out through all of that on the other side,
Thank
right?
goodness. Thank goodness.
And and that's what life is,
Yeah.
right? Like we have obstacles to overcome, and the people in our lives are there for us to support us. And
Mhm.
you've met friends, and we have family members, and we have all of that. And it's so important because I tell you, I mean, I have faced that, the burnout as well. I
Mhm.
think we all do in our career at some point.
Mhm.
We're going to go through a big burnout period, and it's all about how we overcome that
Mhm.
and overcome those obstacles. So really glad to see you're back. You've made it back.
I
That's what's
did. Thank
important,
you.
right?
Thank you.
So one of the things that I think we wanted to talk about was this do we call them rumors, or
Yeah.
what do we call these there is this massive workforce shortage in
Mhm.
cybersecurity. And I want to hear from you because you're on the ground, you're talking with candidates, you're in the recruiting field. Is there really a job shortage, or is this something else that is not really relevant?
Is this hype or is it
Yeah, is
is
this hype? Right.
back in my day, is this, real or is this Memorex? So you have to remember when I came into the community, I came to B-Sides Las Vegas, and it was the first time that, we were hearing workforce challenge. We were hearing
Hmm.
that, we don't have enough talent. And so I decided to go to ground zero and go to hacker summer camp and just sort of talk to people about, what their challenges were. And all I ran into were highly talented technical people who couldn't find a job. And I was like, okay, wait a minute.
Mm.
This is not making sense. And then when I step back and I put together the data, the number one thing that I would see is the Department of Labor does not have a category for cybersecurity. So when we're collecting data, we have to be careful who's collecting data and how they're presenting it. So if there's not a specific category for cybersecurity, then what all of our, wonderful companies and employers are doing is they're slapping cybersecurity on everything. And so we've got that challenge. We've got the challenge of, as you know, cybersecurity has anywhere from 8 to 15 different subcategories depending on offensive, defensive, physical, ICS, any of that. So, okay, what are we categorizing when we're talking about the workforce challenge? And then we're talking about the technical abilities that everyone is going to need to be able to fill that position. And it goes anywhere from a security plus to a
Hmm.
CISSP to a variety of different things that we need for the 8570 in the DoD space. So I step back and I say, we're just throwing it all into one bucket. And anyone who's doing the data collection, they're going to a variety of different job boards, which are job board aggregators. So they're taking 6 or 7 job board aggregators and aggregating that. We know what happens with that. It's just the numbers start
Yeah.
to get bigger and bigger. So I believe, and I'm not going to put my professional career out there, it has been a bit of a strange animal since we started with this. And it's only grown more and more legs to the point that it's a 12-legged unicorn. And I think that I applaud all of the companies who really sit down with their security teams and said, we don't want the cybersecurity title out there. We want specifically what that skill is because we need to go after that specific talent rather than the cybersecurity talent. On the flip side, this has also created such a horrible problem when I was very fortunate to be with the Gulas and a variety of other great people at some of the award ceremonies up in Maryland several years ago. And we had all of these students come in and they were like, oh, yeah, we get to meet with all these other cybersecurity professionals and heroes and stuff. And my question to them was, So, what do you study? Cybersecurity. Yeah, but what within cybersecurity are you
Hmm.
studying? No, I'm studying cybersecurity. I'm like, okay, well, what um
Broad.
let's look at this another way. Let's what excites you about cybersecurity? Oh, I'm going to make a lot of money. And I
Oh.
was just like, okay, we have another problem. We have now gone from one really big problem to we're creating
Yeah.
all of these others. So, if you're hiring for cybersecurity, please get down to the nitty gritty. Are you looking for a pen tester? What are you looking for a SOC analyst? What are you looking for? Please do not, go back to your hiring managers, go back to your program managers. Don't have your talent acquisition be driven by people who don't know what the titles are and the skill sets are. I remember way back when I started in this that, so many people were like, we're going to go after this cybersecurity challenge and we're going to, solve it. And so we saw a variety of organizations, nonprofit and professional services that just started growing because they knew how to decipher the job. So
Mm.
I believe this is all finally coming back to bite everyone. And it's going to take a while to dismantle it so that we get it really down to what particular job set are we looking at? What type of skill set we're looking at? As I said earlier, please, if someone says, I need you to hire a cybersecurity professional, have the questions ready. Like, what is this person going to do? What is the skill set?
Hmm.
What certifications do they need? Is it physical security? Is it cloud security? Let's be very clear because we are only frustrating the job seekers when we are not clear with what we're looking for.
I 100% agree on that. And what I'm finding, pretty much in most of the roles I've had over the last several years is that a lot of times recruiting teams try to get this data and information, like salary bands is a great example, like
Mhm,
for cybersecurity. And what's surprising to me is like there's still not a whole lot of data on that. They
mhm,
have like the known roles that, people have had for, decades. But when it comes to cybersecurity, that's still a very new kind of field. And some of these positions, like a penetration tester, it's really hard to find the data on like what is a good salary band for a senior pen tester, as an example, right? And so we're often left to kind of guess or use other existing roles and try to match
mhm,
that up. And
mhm.
sometimes it isn't an apples to apples thing.
No. And the other challenge that we run into is a lot of these positions started in either the tech centers, which are high salary, high cost of living areas. A lot of them started here in the government contracting space, which, we have our own salary bands as well. And, those one thing that's good is that both in the DoD space and in
Mm.
the commercial space, salary transparency is becoming quite the norm, which a lot of people were like, "Oh, we're not gonna do that because then, people will know what we're paying and then we can be
Uh-huh.
competitive." And I was like, if salary is the only thing that you have attracting someone to your company, you have got some serious things to
Yes,
look
you
at.
do. Yeah. Yeah. Shouldn't be the number one thing.
No, because that
Absolutely.
is something that we talk about on our podcast as well, is that, in the government contracting space, we have certain labor categories that people have to stay within, and it's exciting work, but you're not gonna be paid the same as if you're at a Google or an Apple or something like that, and we really talk about the culture and internal career development, which is something we still don't do in the security community, and all of the different things other than the salary, and,
Hmm.
the one thing that we have to deal with is horrific traffic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Horrific.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've recently I've had to do some hiring of my own as,
Oh,
I'm
my
building a team and that comes with its own challenges.
yeah.
But, I've had to go through a lot of resumes.
Mhm.
And it was very eye-opening to me because, like one of the positions I had, it was like hundreds of resumes that I was going through. And I started picking up on some let's say themes
Mhm.
and patterns,
Mhm.
especially with like the use of AI
Mhm.
in resume generation,
Mhm.
where you clearly can tell that somebody has used AI to generate a resume.
Right.
There's mistakes, there's other kind of telltale signs of that. And also just the lack of effort
Yeah.
these days when people are just throwing their resumes out there hoping something sticks.
Mhm.
And the lack of cover letters, the lack of like true like researching a company beforehand. What do you see from the recruiting side? Is this, it's not just me, right? Like,
No.
okay. Just want to
And
make sure.
I hate to tell you, I've been in this over 2 decades, and it's not changed. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought up AI. So realize, yes, I know it is really painful and it is really uncomfortable doing your resume. I mean, no one likes to do that introspection, but garbage in, garbage out. If you
Yes.
put garbage into your resume, you're going to get no responses or you're going to get garbage jobs. On AI, there are tools on the flip side, on the recruiter side, that can scan a resume before it's even presented to a recruiter that says this is AI generated. So
Mm,
be really careful when you're
yeah.
doing that. Maybe Grammarly, okay, but
Hmm.
let's be careful on that. Is especially if you've used AI to talk about something you did and you really didn't do it, but you're copying it from a scientific journal or something like that. That's gonna like, sorry, plagiarism. Please don't do that. The other thing I remember, I was on Slack and Discord for 2 years providing resume review, and your buddy will tell you that there's this really great template out there to use, and just use this really great template and it'll get you a job. Please don't
Uh-huh.
use a template
Yep.
because they will put graphics in, it will put the spacing really differently. Keep it simple, stupid, the KISS principle,
Hmm.
mainly because you do not know what the technology is on the recruiter's end that's going to read your resume. So whatever boldness or anything that you put in there, you don't know how it's going to be read by another computer. You're right. No one researches it. They put together, they're like, oh God, it took me 3 hours to do my resume. I'm not doing anything more. And this is the one resume I'm going to send out, and screw them if they don't like it. Sorry, guys. Google and keywords, you now have to look at the job, look at what they're looking for, skill set, how many years, certifications,
Hmm.
the keywords that they're using in there. Please be sure that they're in your resume because they're going to look for the exact match.
Yep.
And you said cover letters. There are some people like
Hmm.
screw it on cover letters. I'm sorry, I'm swearing so much, and I probably
No.
shouldn't. But that's something that I like to do now in my advanced age
Feel free.
is just swear like a sailor. Cover letters, yes, if you're going to customize it, not a blanket, everyone gets the same cover letter. This
Yes.
job, I'm really great for this job because of this, this, and this. Keep it to 3. Same thing on your resume. I and many of the recruiters are very big on 5 bullet points because, the statistics are out there anywhere from 7 to 10 seconds on
Hmm.
reading your resume. Grab the attention at the top. Say, I have 25 years of experience in promotion marketing and sponsorship. I've led this team. I've brought in this kind of money, and then go into the skills. Now, this is another area into where you've been employed. This is another area where I see a lot in the tech space. There'll be this sort of area that has, these are all my skills, and it will go through that I'm a security architect and I have great business skills and I'm detail oriented, and then I have what is it? Something else. I did Python or something like that.
Hmm.
Detail oriented, creative writer, easy going kind of person. Those are not skills. Please do
Right.
not put them in the skills section of your resume. And for some reason, everyone came out with putting that in a graph in the middle of a resume. Did you see some of those?
Oh gosh,
Oh,
yeah,
they
I
would put
have.
they would put like
Yeah.
actually a mini spreadsheet in the middle of their resume, and then they would list
No,
it. Please don't do that.
don't.
If
That's
you
bad.
if you have programming skills, put the programming skills. If you
Hmm.
have certifications, put in the certifications. Any of the, business oriented, detail oriented, please don't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we could spend 3 hours talking
Oh,
about this, but
absolutely. So, like, what would you leave our audience with, like, the one thing not to do based on all the experience that you've had in recruiting?
oh, there's an acronym, and now I'm not going to remember what it stands for. So remember that when you're talking about your responsibilities that you've done at a previous job, do the action and then the result. Don't say that you managed people, be sure you say managed people with what result. You
Mm,
have to show that you did something and that it had a positive outcome. Just because you did something for 10 years, that's not going to help you. I think the other thing is your resume is an advertisement to get the phone call. It is not your life story. You get to tell your life story in the interview. So keep it short and succinct.
love it. I love that advice. I think keep it simple,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That is the biggest piece of advice. I love it. I
Mm-hmm.
love it. Well, this has been great, Kathleen, catching up with
Yeah.
you. Where can our listeners find out more about you and everything going on with clearedjobs.net?
So I am going to put another plug in there. If you're not
Yeah.
in the cleared community and you want to be in the cleared community, please take a look at all the research labs. There are some really creative jobs out there, doing a combination of physical security and cloud security. Please look at all the research labs. That's my plug for that. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm coming out with a job seeker newsletter in about a week. So
Cool.
it's called Boost Your Job Search. So look for that on LinkedIn. And yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best place to get in touch with me.
Great. Excellent. Well, we'll have all of that linked in the show notes for our audience.
Great.
But again, Kathleen, absolute pleasure. Always great to have you on the show. And thank you again for your time.
You're quite welcome. Always a pleasure on my end as well.
Thank you for watching or listening to this episode. Be sure to subscribe wherever you like to get your podcasts. Visit sharedsecurity.net for merch, previous episodes, and more. If you'd like to help support the podcast, join our Patreon to get ad-free episodes and many more exclusive supporter-only benefits. Visit sharedsecurity.net/supporter for more details.